All right, can everyone hear me? Put your finger on your nose if you can hear me, All right, good stuff. Welcome to L&D Disrupt Live. Anyone who listens to our podcast, L&D Disrupt? A few people. Look, for those of you who've not listened to it, it's a lucky day. Because today's our 100th episode, which means you've got 99 episodes to listen to on your way back home. But no, thank you. Look, we started this podcast literally to have some honest conversations with people who are in this space, facing the challenges that other L&D professionals are, picking their brain, seeing what they're doing, what works, what doesn't work, and then 100 episodes, here we are. And so to celebrate this moment, we thought we'd go live in a room full of L&D folks and bring together 4 incredible L&D leaders and disruptive thinkers. So here I am with my panel. And to pick their brain about what's working, what's not working, and what can we learn from them that we can apply in 2026. So here we are. I'm your host. I'm Nelson. I'm one of the founders and CEO of HowNow. We're essentially build intelligent tools that help you connect what people are learning to the skills that they need to build so you can prove that L&D actually matters in the organizations. Here are 4 organizations where we help L&D matter. I've got Tara from And Digital. I've got Stephen from So Energy, I've got Penny from In River, and I've got Joe from Centric. We've not got a hell of a lot of time, and I know I'm going to run out of time because there's so many things I want to ask. So we're going to dive straight in by kind of kicking off with all of you, and we're going to come to this, change things around the way you approach L&D. But before we get to what you changed, I want to know, how did you know something wasn't working? Right? You must have felt, you've seen the symptoms of things that are not working for you to go, okay, I need to change something. So Tara, starting with you, what made you change? What were the things that you saw that weren't great?
Thank you. I don't know how loud to speak into this. So And Digital, we are technology partners, so we help clients build tech solutions, but we also support them to build capability so that they can sustain the solutions after launch. The challenge that we have, as well as building internal capability, it's supporting our clients. It's a huge part of our proposition, and actually the impact that our learning solutions were having on billability, so really long workshops, relying really heavily on SME resource to maintain and deliver that content just wasn't working for us at all. We were too slow to go to market with these solutions and to build that capability. So ultimately we needed to evolve as a learning team, embrace things like micro-learning, lightning talks, and deliver learning in meaningful bursts and create connections so that we could rapidly evolve and build capability at the speed of tech.
So it's like business pressure to
Yes.
go, look, we're not delivering. And I guess in your case with consultants who need to be billable, it's quite
Absolutely.
telltale, right?
Time
If they
is money,
don't have the
right?
skills for you to be able to sell that talent out there,
Yes.
affects the business. What about, Joe, with you, it seemed like the pain was really around, it was a fragmented learning ecosystem that wasn't getting the engagement. Was that kind of what you saw?
Yeah, more or less. So Centric's fiercely entrepreneurial in the property management space, and which is great. So it moves at 100 miles an hour and you just iterate, and it's really, really great, right? However, from a learning perspective, that meant everything was going on everywhere all of the time, 110%. And the moment I knew that something needed to change, well, it kind of dawned on me over time. It was just doing my head in. I just could not get a handle on what on earth was going on, and so it didn't matter. All these things were going all over the place. So it was a case of really engaging with the key stakeholders, using HowNow to say this is the right place and this is the only place that learning will be. This is the central point of truth for everything that's going on around the business, and being able to bring everyone together, everyone running at 110 miles an hour, and just kind of like herding cats, really, just kind of herd them into the right pen and say, right, this is how learning works here, this is how engagement works here. So jump on the train, but then you can help steer it afterwards.
I guess often the question is, you've probably got hundreds of problems you could solve, but the question is, why now? Why this problem? Why now? Why was it so pressing to solve that problem?
So the reason we needed to solve the problem is because we were at a critical point in our growth to about 300 people. And that's an interesting amount of people, because a little bit less and you can run yourself like a really small business where everybody knows everyone else's pet's name, right? But you get to a certain point and you can no longer do that, right? And you've got people that you don't know who they are and everything else. So at a certain point, you have to acting and operating like a different sized business. Now, we chose to do that first and foremost with learning and development and say, look, let's bring some infrastructure around and let's start acting like a bigger business that's ready and scalable for growth.
And Stephen, at So Energy, you decided to take on two big problems kind of at the same time, right? Like one of those kind of really thinking about, you had compliance challenges you wanted to overcome, whilst also changing the perception of learning within the organization. Tell me why those challenges and what kind of made you think, I need to act on this now?
Yeah, and I think we all realised that the country went through an energy crisis, and our business had to shift and change and really react and become a really agile business. And also we partnered with a larger company in Ireland, and they're like hitting their 100 years, and and then you move into energy industry being highly regulated anyway. So compliance is core for us to deal with. But the problems we were facing is that it was becoming too centralised in our L&D function, that we were being relied on too much for not only those compliance pieces but also the development and the learning, and that created a fractured approach for us. And actually, how then do we prioritize or actually meet people where they're at with what they need for their learning needs?
Yeah, so it's almost like that small lean team becomes a bit of a bottleneck for what you can achieve.
Completely.
How many people, show of hands for if you're in like a lean L&D team where you feel like you're a bit of a bottleneck in what you can do? All right. The rest of you feel like you've got it under control? Good to hear. We want to learn from you later on. Penny, with your one, it was more around, I guess, you were running a lot of certification programs, both kind of inside and outside of the organizations. What made you think that was the primary area you needed to touch?
Yeah, so just for clarity, so we're also a software company, and our remit in our team actually is not just our own people, it's also our partners and our customers. So certifications becomes quite important, particularly for our partners. It's actually part of their contractual agreement. And one of the things with the or our product certifications was the fact that it is blended. So there's a series of online stuff you do, then there's suddenly 3-day workshop. Are you insane? So immediately I was like, well, hang on, let's actually calculate that back. How much time is required? The subject matter experts that are facilitating those workshops, if we were to make that asynchronous, how much time would that bring back to the business, which we could then reinvest into enablement and other strategies that we want to do and execute on. So it was a win-win because of the fact that it influences not just our own people who have to do those certifications, our partners. And I knew immediately getting that time back into the business to be able to do all the other stuff that we needed to do was crucial. And we kind of need to do it, and we're doing it now.
Quite often what we see is, with all challenges like this, we quite often see people leaning towards, what we need? We need more content, or we need to create more content, or we need to procure more content. But interestingly, what really stood out listening to kind of the challenges that you went on to solve, none of you actually took that approach of kind of prioritizing, kind of let's get more content and solve that. And so I wanted to start with, Stephen, in your case, probably the most obvious one to go, compliance is a bit of a problem. Let's get, quote unquote, more fun and interactive compliance content and solve this. You didn't do that. Why didn't you do that, and what did you go on to do instead?
Yeah, I think when you talk compliance and engagement, those two words aren't friends a lot of the time anyway, and I think we all come across that struggle about how we get people to understand, because it's a risk to the business, it's a risk to our customers, and it's something people need to understand. And actually the platform really helped change our approach, because we were very traditional in our approach beforehand of delivering compliance-based training face-to-face or virtually, but that's not scalable. So when we first got the platform, we had these beautifully sculpted, content pieces. These are the reasons, and this is why you do that and all that, and very proud of it, but our completion rates weren't being hit. And I noticed the behavior of our people. They were spending on average about 7 minutes in those modules, rushing through them. I think you've seen some of the social media posts where people are just rushing through the corporate stuff. So as I said before, meet them where they're at. Fine, you want to spend 7 minutes? I'm going to create something you can do in 7 minutes. Really on the nose stuff. Phishing, if it looks like this, report it. done. They always understand what that is. And with our society at the moment, with us consuming things quicker and faster, Teams or Slack in the background, distracting you, taking you out of that, it felt quite radical to just be really like on the nose with that. But we surround this with the traditional approaches. So if you fail a phishing email in our business, we've just launched something called phishing awareness courses. So if anyone's been caught speeding, I'm not going to ask you to put your hands up, by the way, you may have to go a phishing awareness course. So if you don't do that, we still do other blends to bring that in. But yeah, it's that real point. They told me by their behavior, and the platform let me understand what the behavior was. So meet them with that behavior. It makes it easier.
I love that. And Joe, again, in your case, you decided to focus on creating a hub, which you call the Academy. So tell us a bit more about what the Academy is and what were the challenges in setting that hub up?
So Centric Academy is both the name for our HowNow platform, and it's also a physical training space, which is unbelievable in this day and age for a company of 300 people to have an entire floor that's known as Centric Academy. We can have people come in and out. We've got all of the hybrid tech and all the rest of it. Amazing. So that was great. And I think one of the initial challenges was they built it and said, right, now fill it with people. And then that was what was being targeted, right? How many people can we get through the academy over and over and over and over again? Which is, on one hand, fine, but it doesn't actually measure what you need to measure. Who's measuring impact then? Who's measuring that the people in there are the people that actually need to be in there? How are we measuring that when those people come through the academy, they're on the other side, they're actually getting the outcomes and behavior is actually changing? So it's been the challenge really with it is not... Luckily, it's not been getting senior leadership buy-in or anything like that. Really, it's been the opposite. It's been saying, look, we need to focus on other things, right? We've proved that we can fill the academy, but actually, I'd rather less people in and higher impact, because that's where you're going to get a return on investment.
So how did you get by? I mean, that idea of having both a digital and a physical hub, yeah, it does sound, you don't hear it that often for this size of company. So was it difficult to get in? What was that process like to get the buy-in and set that up?
It comes back down to our fiercely entrepreneurial founders, and there was a good idea and they just ran with it, and then next thing you know, the academy's built and they're like, oh, we should get someone in to run it. And so I've been very lucky to be able to ride that wave. The challenge really is then how do we bring that to some sort of maturity within the L&D space that we now work in, and there's something that's actually going to serve the business for their long-term goals.
And what did adoption look like in the early days? Like, you launched a digital hub as well as a physical hub. Were people rushing to it? Like, what was it like?
Some were rushing, some were shoved. So it's a bit of both. And then over time, we just had to iterate, right? This comes back to the entrepreneurial mindset that we have in L&D, but also in the business more widely. It's a case of iterating. Does this work, right? So we did a train the trainer course for all of our specialists, because I'm a team of one. So I thought, oh, great, I'll just train all the SMEs up to train like how I think that they should train, and then send them forth to go and do learning. Won't that be amazing? Well, it turns out everybody's at 110% capacity. So that's not going to happen. L&D is a very proactive thing, not a reactive thing, right? So actually, the proactive stuff tends to fall by the wayside, and the reactive stuff gets done first. So that approach wasn't working. So we just had to constantly change. Right, fine, let's not worry about bumps. Let's do some stuff that's pre-recorded, for example, and what have you, and then push that out at certain times with like a webinar-y type feel. And so just iterating all of these different ideas and then cycle through everything that you think you know, everything that you think you've tried in the past, and just keep on iterating. The Overton window changes. What worked for you before might not work in the future, and things that failed in the past now might be the right time to have another crack at that. And so it's just iteration.
And being a digital consultancy, Tara, I know one of the areas you were tackling, I'm sure many people here are tackling, is kind of AI upskilling, right? Like, that's the kind of CEO mandate right now. We need to get everyone AI ready, and I imagine you also under the pressure. But what we often see, you know, the kind of knee-jerk reaction there is, let me go get some AI training content. But again, you didn't do that in that scenario, and you've managed to run a kind of successful and impactful AI upskilling change program. So talk to us a bit about that approach. You know, why didn't you just go get some AI training content?
Absolutely. I feel like there's too much of it out there to kind of weed it out. So we had a bit of a, not so much of an uh-oh moment, but a bit of a reality check during the summer last year, whenever we identified that 75% of our workforce actually categorised themselves as either a beginner or a novice when it came to AI. And in a technical organisation, those figures are quite sobering, right? So we knew that we had to rapidly upskill our entire workforce workforce, and we had a really clear goal. We wanted every single one of our Andes to come away from a program having the confidence, the capability, a shared language, and a really strong foundation for everything AI. So we put together a program called AI Ignition, which we rolled out in October. So how we formed it, there were 30 individual contributors that were responsible for designing, iterating and launching that program. So it was a massive effort, and it spanned way outside what we could deliver in our academy, our L&D team. So we created 5 chapters of content, and within each chapter there were 10 days worth of learning, and each day was just 10 minutes long. So truly bite-size, and truly something that could be completed in the flow of work and not impact billability, not impact client delivery. So the board were buzzing about that. The way that it was designed as well, it had a blend of theory, it had experiential learning, it had experimentation, and we used real life case studies on where we'd worked with our clients to deploy solution and implement some of these things. So it was absolutely fantastic. A key part for us whenever we launched it was to launch it with our pioneers. So our pioneers are the most senior people within our business, so it was great for them to get early access, so they could test, they could give feedback, but actually so that they could role model that if they could spend 10 minutes every single day embracing AI, so could everybody else. So we weren't taking any excuses in completing this program. And that was really evident in the adoption. So over 90% of our workforce have engaged with the program, have adopted it. The figure's going up every day as well. And one of the key things that came as a result of that, so from those 75% of Andes who said that they were at that beginner novice stage, we now have 78% of our workforce who identify as AI practitioners, which is just amazing for just 3 months. So yeah, that's AI.
Incredible. And one of the things that stood out again is alongside, there was kind of minimal creating your own resources and content, and there was a lot of curation of expertise that came in, and you were able to kind of leverage technology to cut down that curation time. So what was the approach there?
Absolutely. So as an L&D team, I spoke earlier about moving away from being a workshop coordinators to being more strategic enablers. And what we've done at AND is we've created a really robust ecosystem when learning can take place. So the Academy is one pillar. We work really closely with our practice areas who are most technical experts in the business. And what we've done is we've created time and space and a platform for them so that they can share their insights. They can create a real community where people can connect and share that knowledge together, and again weaving in our strategic alliance partners as well. So we work with organisations like AWS, Snowflake, Microsoft, and being able to actually integrate the resources they have, leverage the learning opportunities, and also promote those certification opportunities as well with our Andes has been instrumental at meeting that market demand and building that capability at pace.
And kind of going beyond engagement of content, one of the challenges we often find is, engagement is the primary requirement for any learning and behavior change to take place, but it's not the only requirement, right? And quite often we over-index our time and effort on the engagement part, but not on the kind of application, the practice and behavior change. And this is one of the things, Penny, you kind of deliberately did. You went beyond thinking about how do I make people discover this content and engage it, to really think about, actually, the outcome I want to achieve here is people being able to do something rather than being able to know something. So talk to us about that kind of shift and what you did to achieve that.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting because moving away from talking in terms of what actually matters to people, and in the moment of learning as well, or the moment of need, should I say. So again, a lot of my peers have said around it being relevant to those people, about being in the moment, accessible, all those things. So hence why getting a good ecosystem in terms of technology helps to break some of those barriers down and getting stuff into place. But one of the big things we've had to really pivot on within our team that we've just centralized is the way in which we actually work, as opposed to being reactive and order takers. And actually what we do now is we actually qualify any kind of request or conversation. So not only do we have a plan for the year that's focused on the business and supporting the business, which means that we are working on things that actually matter and actually make a difference, rather than, oh, that's great, well, lots of people are coming to visit the platform. I don't care. What I care about is are they able to do their job successfully? Are they growing? Is it making a difference to the business numbers? Because at the end of the day, that's a great way to sort of measure our success and the impact we have. And we combine that with using subject matter experts who might deliver a workshop for us, for example. So no, we're not fully online at all. But actually leveraging them, because they then become advocates, which then encourage people to then come to complete various modules or whatever it is. But our core thing is making sure that whatever we do put forward actually has clear parameters on why we're doing it and how we're going to measure that success. Otherwise, we don't do it, which is quite ruthless.
And on that, I know you were focusing towards kind of practice and knowledge retention, and one of the big parts of what you did was around kind of creating scenarios for people to practice. How was that challenging to bring into play? Was it easy to get the buy-in for changing that approach?
Well, thankfully, because what we were doing is, if I take the asynchronous project as a great example, that's all practical, right? It's all exercises. But how do you then make that so that it's self-service and still giving the same practical elements? So we've done our first phase of that and have managed to do it with 2 of our certifications. Hot off the press, it saved one of us on one of our certifications 50 hours. 50 hours back to the business every month. Imagine what we can do with that. It's so exciting. But the next phase is then introducing the AI component of that to completely fully automate it, to completely then embed things like a coach that's going to be there with them through it. And this allows us to be, as some of you have mentioned, around scalability, because as a business, we're only 300 as well, and we're looking to expand into other countries. So how do we meet people again in all the places that they are? So we've slowly started to do iterations of that, and by giving time back to the business, now my team can now build other stuff and be involved in other conversations and meet with the execs and have those conversations and be more visible rather than waiting for we need some training. And it's not always a solution. I've literally just had a debate with someone literally on the train coming here about.
One of the challenges we often see is L&D teams struggling to link the effort they're putting in L&D, but being able to link that to, are we building the right capabilities to be able to deliver what the business wants to see? And one of the key components of that is kind of understanding, what skills do people have and what skills they actually need, and be able to connect those dots. And that's a change, right? For anyone who's been very kind of content-centric L&D, it's quite a change to go through. And this is, Stephen, something you've been kind of real successful in driving this transformation in the organization. That's no easy task. So talk to us about, the challenges of moving towards a more skills-based approach to how you think about learning.
Yeah, I think skills, it's a really interesting topic. And, if we talk about lessons learned, I was really arrogant, first of all, with this. Mid-year 2024, I had plans of everyone's going to be skilled, Matt. We're going to then build it into performance by the let's go. And I was like what you are, sitting there at another skills conference, and they were talking about how it is in this talent market. And that realization dawned on me that, oh my God, my plans are not going to work. I literally remember I went straight back after and I created a presentation labeled "Why My Plan Won't Work." But that honesty actually really helped me with the business as well, because there were murmurs of this. They were telling me this, that there's a lot more work to do about this. And that's the thing. I think when I look at skills, I see it as almost a plant that needs to grow within the business. And I hadn't built the root structure. There was no way that I could feed that plant or have that stability to really grow it into the business as well. So yeah, I had to take a step back and really think, okay, time to rethink this.
So talk us through the steps. So you had this plan that you were like, this is not going to work. Then once you figured that out, what were the steps that you took to move towards where you are now?
Maybe a little cry and a glass of wine, first of all, to start off. But to get over it. The steps is actually, again, I talked about this in compliance training, is listening to the business. I have a very complex business. I have engineers, I have tech, I have trading, I have trainers, I have contact center agents. It's so broad, and skills means something different to everybody else. So the steps that I've really started doing is to actually start communicating the vision, why we want to do this, referencing some of these studies that really lend itself well to understanding how we can be more agile and be mobile as a business. And then one of the biggest things I've done to actually help this is to unify language. We were talking about stakeholder management and all our stakeholders at that point. I think I had 8 different ways of describing that. Well, that's going to not make it easy for me to translate that. So we created a skills catalogue, and that skills catalogue worked in tandem with all of these stakeholders. Does this sound right? Does that not sound right? And it really helped us again. How do we create a language, that Babel fish of understanding across the business of how we do that too? And one of the other next thing is actually to remove people away from task to skills. People describing tasks as skills, and one of the examples I use quite a lot is if you put the skill, I can knit a jumper. Well, the skill is knitting, the task is the jumper. What we want to do is be able to knit mittens or, go for a onesie if that's what you want to do, your proficiency level 5. But again, it's actually using those pieces to help people understand what we're really getting to, and then what that trade-off is, what the benefits are going to be to the business.
Yeah, quite often that challenge of getting that one language that we can all align on, definitely see that challenge quite a lot. We're almost coming towards the end of the session, but I wanted to know, with the changes that you've all made, one of the big shifts that we saw was it stopped feeling like an L&D thing. I think what you all managed to do was trying to get kind of ownership from other stakeholders and other teams quite successfully. And I guess, Stephen, staying with you, you managed to get line managers to really take ownership for this development. I'm sure we'd all love that to happen. So tell us, what was the secret? How do you get line managers on board?
I think that's the thing with L&D. We look for this answer, and it's incremental. The small moments gather and make a movement. So it's not necessarily a big piece. So I dial into the competitive nature of some of my peers as well. So some of them have created a course on there as well, and they're like, oh, look how well you're doing, with other people around. Well, I want that too as well. So it moves it away from me, and it gives them the motivation to do that work as well. Also, the platform gives us a wealth of data. And that data is, again, we talked about completion rates. It's not about that. It's about how leaders in my business can look at that and go, they've been looking at leadership courses. Maybe I need to have a conversation about this. And it's another way of observing that behavior to really understand that. So it then really makes me, because I align to the people team, is that it's not a people team action. This is an action that sits within you and what you can do. And then it actually lends to our engagement scores as well. Then you can see how you can attribute to that as well, and those things move our business forward.
And Tara, how has the perception of L&D changed amongst your execs and leaderships with the success of the AI upskilling program, but also generally changing the approach?
God, the perception's changed massively. I think that we've absolutely won people over with the success of what we've been able to achieve with AI Ignition. I feel like that moment that I was talking about kind of mid-year, when we had that real tough strategic problem to solve, we're well on our way to getting closer to that and bringing our execs, our practice areas, our strategic alliance partners, and everybody at And along in that journey has made a huge impact. And everybody's asking, okay, now that we've done that, what is happening next? And we've got so much within the pipeline that we're really excited about solving. How can we apply the same but bigger and better next time? How can we continue to evolve and elevate our practitioner space into more of those advanced and specialist roles as well?
We've got a couple of minutes left, so I just want one thing, actionable thing that we can all take away today and start applying in our own organizations to have an even better and successful 2026. I'm going to start with you, Joe. What's that one thing?
I'm going to go controversial. I'm going to say stop pushing out training and start getting people to come to you instead. Stop saying, this is my training offering, which one do you like, what, this, that, and the other. I actually stopped that entirely, and now all I do is solve problems for other people, and that's changed the culture of learning completely.
I like that. Penny?
I've got so much to say. The biggest thing I would say is, which actually complements that, is you've got to go out and meet those people in their place and understand their space. and that will reduce the pushing out content that is irrelevant.
Yeah, I think there's a theme coming here as well within this as well. Meet them where they're at is a big thing. What I'm to observe that behaviour, deconstruct what you think is right, and do something which they're telling you with their actions. It's really just observing and meeting them where they're at.
I feel like the full house on this one. Absolutely. I think that we in learning and development need to really connect with and understand what are the biggest problems within businesses, connect with those leadership teams and move away from being problem solvers to problem finders, and understand and enabling these capability and skills transformations where we can.
I love that. There's a strong theme of talk business, not L&D. Thank you to Joe, Penny, Stephen and Tara. Give it up for my panel here on our 100th episode. If you'd like to continue the conversation and pick their brain, pop down to E90 at the HowNow stand and they'll be there to answer questions. We've also got a sip and learn this afternoon in Roundtable Theatre 4, where we're running a hands-on practical session on developing your L&D strategy for 2026. So do come down, have a glass of wine and work on your strategy. What more can you want? Following that session, there is a house party where it's open to network and meet like-minded people. And if you haven't listened to L&D Disrupt, you've got something to listen on your way back home. Thank you. This is brought to you by HowNow. It's been fun. Thank you.